Good evening, Mr. Fun here for the Tilton Talk special pre-season opener. Just a quick half hour or so I'll be on tonight. If anybody's got any questions, any thoughts on the pre-season so far, what's happened, thoughts on the season ahead, transfers, etc., etc. It's been a usual with Blues, a very busy pre-season, a very hectic, turbulent pre-season. Not knowing where we stood 4 weeks ago, with Gary Monk going, obviously, and then we're last couple of weeks have been very eye-opening in terms of where the club's going, where the club's trying to go in terms of signings, direction of play, and things like that. And it has been, it looks like the club is very much on a wave of trying to change pretty much everything with the way we play about football. Emma Humphreys says, "Hi Chris, exciting times with all the new players coming in. What do you think of all the names we're linked with?" That's been one of the really interesting elements of pre-season. I think that a lot has been made. A lot of people have commented on how they feel it's similar to when Redknapp was in charge. I think it's a little bit different. I see it as a little bit different to that. The sort of players we're looking at. Obviously there is the link to UE Cornea, the Spanish side. Now, whether that's had a big influence on the players that they're trying to bring in, this, that, and the other, but the likes of Jake Clark-Salter on loan, they're looking. His first game on Saturday against Brighton didn't tear the world apart, but regardless of that, he's an England under-21 captain. We've got him on loan for the season. The way, whether it's Pep who wants to play that way or the owners who wants to play that way, it remains to be seen. But looks like we're going three at the back. And Jake Clark-Salter has come in, and he looks like he'll be one of those ones who will fit in that back three. You've got Dan Crowley, who's come in for less than £1 million. I mean, that looks a ridiculous sign, and I've got to say, maybe it is. And I've spoken to a few Blues fans, and I think it's important not to get ridiculously carried away. But after years of watching, with no disrespect meant to them as footballers, but Davis, Kieftenbeld, Craig Gardner, dare we even mention Check and Doy? Dan Crowley's come in, and he looks like he's a footballer who's happy to have the ball at his feet. And as I said, after what we've had to watch over the last few years, it's understandable that Blues fans are getting a little bit carried away in terms of what he can bring to the side. We've spent a lot of money on Ivan Sunjic, the Croatia under-21 captain. So it definitely feels different to the Redknapp splurge, if you like, of a couple of years ago. That seemed like it was just okay. We'll trust Redknapp and the director of football at the time, and everything went through them, and they just spent money willy-nilly on numbers, basically. Whereas now they look like they're trying to identify specific players in specific areas, which will help the team. They know that if they want to play this kind of football, they need midfielders who can play football. They've gone and got Crowley and Sunjic, maybe more. Clark-Salter at the back, a ball-playing centre half, someone who, in his England career, England under-21 career, and last season in Holland, looked like he could play with the ball at his feet. So again, it's a very direct calculated move to bring these players in, rather than just saying, okay, we need 15 players, so we're going to go and get 15 players. So yeah, it looks like a very targeted attempt to change the way we play. Thanks to everybody who's commenting. I will get through a few now. Ian Dolloway says, "Hi mate, we are going up." But do you know what? That's as ridiculous as that sounds. Everybody was ready to hand their season ticket in 4 weeks ago when Monk got the sack. So, it shows how crazy it is with a couple of signings. Luke Acton, I'll say this, I'll bring this up now. I think it is very important. Is there any truth in Puskas? Please, actually, you can ask whatever you want, but don't expect any insider knowledge, insider info from me or anybody else on the Tilton Talk Show. We are just supporters. We're in exactly the same boat as you. I have fallen into the trap of following this Twitter account, that Twitter account, Croatian journalists, Romanian journalists, on the hope that we see some news about George Puskas or Mateo Garcia. Now is the one where there's Spanish journalists saying he's on his way to Birmingham for a medical. I have no idea. I hope as much as everybody that we could get these sorts of players in. There are people and there are Twitter accounts with far more inside knowledge than me. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I'd love to see someone like Puskas coming in, a striker. I think we definitely need a striker. 2 attacking players for me still, I think. Obviously we got to the end of the week. But yeah, I don't know anything insider knowledge. Chris and Nick might. They're not telling me if they are, but yeah, we hope the same as you. Stephen Gill says, I still think we need another defender. Well, we've got the 3 now who played against Brighton. Dean Roberts, Clark Salter. Pedersen played left side centre half at Bristol Rovers. So there's 4. Dacres Cogley, Wes Harding have played centre half in pre-season. And whilst I think that's not obviously ideal, you don't want, if there were 2 injuries, we are relying on non-centre halves playing centre half. But if we're restricted for finances, or if we're restricted for money a little bit, I think I'll be looking in the attacking options at the moment rather than defence. But I see why you're saying that, Stephen. Solid mid-table finish from Mark. Do you know what? After what we were looking at 3 weeks ago, mid-table seems absolutely delightful at the moment. But just knowing Blues, you know it's not going to be that easy, really. Kevin Kelly, Chris, lots of action in the ins and outs. Will there be a team settled for Brentford? Any idea how this is happening under FFP? I don't know how it's happening under FFP. I hope the board do this time, obviously. I think the team, and this is something that a couple of people have been saying, in terms of how long do we give this little experiment? I think we have to give it as long as physically possible. Like, unless we're winless after 15 games, like, then we have to start questioning, obviously. But I think the manager, the caretaker head coach, if you like, Pep, I think he deserves a crack at it. I think, I said this on Birmingham Fan TV on their recent podcast. They were kind enough to ask me to come on, and I said, I think the reality is here that even with a good manager like Gary Monk, and you can't fault what he did on the pitch. There were obviously reasons for his departure, but on the pitch you couldn't really fault what happened last season. We had a decent season. We enjoyed it a little bit more than we have done in previous seasons, obviously. But if even with a guy like Gary Monk, if you keep him for 4 years and you keep the core of your squad for 4 years, you don't progress that way. You know, teams. Norwich were mid-table, kept going. You know, a decent end to the season, but then they wouldn't change anything. And then all of a sudden, you know, they change the way they want to go about things. They bring a few acquisitions in, and they tear the league up. Ipswich, mid-table. They keep players that have been there 5 or 6 years. Don't try and develop. Don't try and change with the league, and they find themselves ending up dropping further and further down and inevitably falling out of the league. So I think you've got to give it time. You've got to give it a chance. You've got to accept that change sometimes is necessary. It's a brave move. It's a bold move. Some might say, you know, it's still an unnecessary move because you know, the sacking of Monk is still something that splits people. But it is what it is, and we're here now 5 days before the season starts. And we've got to give them a chance. We've got to give the players a chance, and we've got to give the manager a chance. And if there's a misplaced pass, you know, as frustrating as it is, you know, it's difficult to not get on the players' backs too much. If they're keeping it at the back, you know, it's very easy to start shouting, lump it and hoof it. But, you know, try and trust the process. Try and trust what the players and the coaching staff are trying to do, and it might work a hell of a lot quicker than if players are nervous on the ball and panicking on the ball. Crowley is a steal. Yeah, I think he probably will be. I think he'll turn out to be a very good player in this division. No striker yet, says Dazzy. Yeah, and obviously there's, again, we're only talking rumours, but you know, Vassell is now being linked away from the club, which leaves us even more adrift in the forward options. Brighton Bakari is someone who's been linked all summer. That's gone quiet. Rafa Mir was linked for about 8 hours, and then it looks like he's going to Forest. So, you know, there's been lots of forwards, lots of strikers being linked to the club. Nothing concrete yet. Hopefully, the board are working hard. I know Craig Gardner in his interview after, I think it was the Swindon friendly, he said, you know, he can't emphasise enough how hard the board are working to bring players in, to bring but as I said earlier, to bring the right players in. It's not just about we need 3 strikers, so we're going to get any old guy in. You know, it has to fit the plan. It has to fit the system. Otherwise, we're not going to do those deals anymore. Yes. Well said, Chris Brown. Very important point. I am brought to you this evening by our wonderful sponsors, Boyle Sports and Cafe to You, Solihull, who have been very, very kind in sponsoring the Tilton Talk Show this season. They'll be mentioned more and more throughout the season. 2 fantastic companies who have been, as I said, very kind to sponsor us this season. So thank you very much to them. Matteo Garcia, Nicholas Wellsbury, yeah, there's another one. That's the one I've seen today. A journalist say he's left his club and he's on his way to Birmingham, but we've heard a couple of them. Obviously the Sunjic one came through. Let's hope this one, Matteo Garcia, is another one that comes through for us. Mark Adams, or do we go to this one? Stockdale, still not sure of him. I will leave it at it wasn't the best return for him on Saturday. That's all I will say. And I think camp starts at Brentford for me. What impact do you think Paco will have, says Brett Stanley? Yeah, so Paco, obviously, coming in as Pep's assistant, a wealth of experience. I think that's what he brings. You know, someone who has coached in the Spanish leagues. You know, and hopefully he has a few insights into some of these players that we're looking at bringing in. and a style and a philosophy that he can help Pep bring to these players. And we can mould a team that can impress. And can show that we're not massively one dimensional anymore. That's the important thing, I think, for me. That the whole reason behind this change, it has to be that we're not one dimensional. It has to be that we don't get to January and people realise that we're just trying to get it to our attackers as soon as physically possible. This has to be we can play it to wing backs, we can play it through the middle through Cowley, or we could go direct to Duke if we want to. That is an important one for me, I think, and I think we have to utilise all of those skills and get used to realising quickly which one is going to succeed against which opposition. I think Truman may be off mark. Well, there's that rumour of again another rumour. I think it's the Real Madrid. One of Real Madrid's young keepers was spotted at St Andrews on Saturday. Now, if that's another signing, that'll be 4 goalkeepers. We've got Adam Weaver still at the club, I think, and then there's 2 or 3 that have gone out on loan. It's an awful lot of goalkeepers. So if this Real Madrid guy comes in, it'll be interesting to see whether he goes into the first team or part of the under-23 setup. If it's part of the under-23 setup, can you really see Real Madrid letting one of their keepers go on loan to be part of a championship club's under-23 setup? Probably not. So does that mean it's permanent? We'll have to wait and see what comes out. But as I said, by this time next week, the window's closed, so we know exactly what we're playing with. Announced song, Pete Taylor, great point. I'm hoping that one's still in the offing, because it will put to bed all of those people who said I didn't know what I was talking about. Have we signed a goalie yet? Just joined CMA, spoke about it, or just gone through that, Linda. My mate's mate, who knows this mate, says we're going to sign exactly that. James, that's been the story of Birmingham City Twitter over the last 3 weeks, isn't it? It's been crazy. So many people know. So many people who know things. It's amazing how but obviously some people do know, and fair play to them. I'll give them a mention. We are Birmingham. Those guys have got contacts with the club. It's very clear of that, because this season I don't think they've been wrong once. That, to be fair, they're being more careful with the wording of what they put out now. Which is helping fans. But if you want to follow account and make sure that you get the information when it appears to be coming through, I'd be following those ones, because they have the contacts and they're getting the news coming through. Any truth in the rumours we are building a team of Tebblies? I'll speak to some people who know some people, and I'll get back to you on that, Mark. How long can we see Pep in charge? Good question, Jez, and I think that is very, very dependent on how the season starts, on how the team gel and start picking up points quickly, which we all hope they do. Because that's so important. If you don't pick up a win in your first 5 games or so, and teams are already 6-7 points ahead of you, and you're looking over your shoulder already, and you're wondering where your next point's coming from, especially with Pep's title of caretaker head coach still. It's a precarious position. So listen, I've got nothing against Pep. I think he's a genuinely really nice guy, and I'd love nothing more than for him to succeed. And we go to Brentford and pick up a point or so, or maybe more. And then you've got the home game against Bristol City. You've got Barnsley at home before September comes as well. So I genuinely hope he does really, really well. Watching the pre-season games, we went to Bristol to see Bristol Rovers. We watched on Saturday against Brighton, and I can see signs. as I said, it's going to take time. It's going to need the fans to get behind him and back him, and hopefully he can continue the progress that he's trying to make. For sale, Luton Town, that is the rumour that's going round. Say if we don't win the first couple of games, you reckon the atmosphere will turn toxic, James? I just worry that, we'll be 0-0 at home to Barnsley on that Tuesday night. I think it's the fourth game of the season. If we haven't won a game by then and it's 0-0 with 20 minutes to go and Clark Salter's playing it back to Harley Dean, my concern is that the crowd will get a bit hoof it and lump it and get on with it, a bit impatient with the side and with the style. I hope that's not the case. I hope we start really well and it clicks into gear very quickly, because I think if it does, it's going to look amazing. I really do. I think it's going to surprise teams and it's going to pick us points up. That is my fear, that if we don't start particularly well, if we don't get a lot of points to start with, then fans will become very impatient with the style. Were you surprised that they spent the money from Che and Jota? No, not really, Graham. The only surprise is that if obviously they've done their calculations. Well, you hope they have. They've done their calculations right. If they had it available, these owners have never really suggested that they wouldn't put the money back into it. They put a hell of a lot of money into it under Redknapp, and they're clearly desperate for us to get up, as naive and as outrageous as that might sound, and an ambition that seems too high. That is their end game for Birmingham City. They want to. They're an investment company. I've said this from the day they come in. They want to sell a Premier League club because that's the most amount of money they can get, and they will. They will back us because that's their end goal. That's their pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, if you like. The fact that if they sell a Premier League club, their job is done. It's an unbelievable fortune that they get for that. So I think they will. I think they will keep trying to reinvest where they can. Obviously, they're trying to be more careful now. And they're trying to go about things differently, which is good. That if they're doing things differently and they seem to be learning their lesson, that's a positive for me. And you have to give them a little bit of credit for that, I think. Our signings are too sensible. We need a scattergun record, 13 signings approach. Very good point, Pete. Yeah, maybe one day again. Can you tell me where the money has come from all the players, says Andrew? Well, there's obviously the sale of Adams. 15 million was the figure bandied about. I believe Sheffield United had a 20% sell on, so that's 12 million we get. I assume it's not it's not all up front, it'll be in instalments, so we've probably got 6 up front. We got a little bit from them across the road for Hotter, and then the rest might be selling off the ground. That might be news we hear as the season goes on. I'd be surprised if it was announced very soon. Because if it doesn't need to be, they won't announce that sort of news. As I said, you hope, Andrew, that they have got their calculations right this time, and that we aren't in any more trouble. Didn't we try this experiment under Zola and it didn't work? Sort of, but not. Obviously, Zola came in halfway through a season. I think it was December when Zola came in. And he had the players that he had there, and he was basically told overnight to change it. Now, obviously, Pep's had 3 or 4 weeks longer than overnight, if you like. But he's had pre-season. He's had the whole of pre-season. And now we go into the start of the season, and if it'll click, some teams might not be clicking themselves either. So we might be able to catch a few teams off guard as we're working on our method as well. I think it's a different experiment. I think it's a more calculated, more technical approach to this method. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Obviously, it could all turn out to be very similar to the Zola. With 3-5-2 being deployed, do you feel sorry for the likes of Magoma? I feel sorry for them a little bit, but also on the other hand, they're professional footballers. And if Jack Magoma needs to develop his style from an out-and-out left winger to either playing off Duke as the second forward, or playing in the 10, or playing left wing back, wherever he has to play, then that's what he has to do. He's a professional footballer. He's got the coaching staff at the club who can help him do that. And it goes for the likes of David Davis as well. David Davis has obviously, he's, to be fair to him, he looks like he's struggled in terms of, getting the ball moving as quickly as possible in that midfield and the ball coming through him. He has had a long-term injury. Obviously, he came back last season, towards the back end of last season. But I would say that, you've got the coaching staff there. You've had a whole pre-season now. These guys are professional athletes. They're professional footballers. And we might see a different David Davis come January than we have this pre-season. If they keep working on him and they keep working on his control and his passing range, then we might see a different David Davis. As it is, with Sunjic coming in and Crowley and Gary Gardner, I think that's probably your three-man midfield. So I don't think Davis probably gets in at the moment. Where are we? Should we go through some more comments? Don't get the sudden hate for Magoma. I haven't seen much sudden hate for Magoma, but obviously he's been away with African nations. He's only just come back, so I think there's certainly someone. Magoma is someone who can still put a shift in for Blues and do stuff. James Jobbins, looking forward to seeing Bellingham this season, and Odin Bailey I'll put in that bracket, and Steve Seddon I'll put in that bracket as well. I have to say, and again, the Gary Monk sacking and what Juan Dong Ren said after the Gary Monk sacking, and then you see all the young players all of a sudden sign their new contracts, and a lot of them are involved in the first team. So, supporters put two and two together and make 4 or 5. And one of them's right, one of them's wrong, and we could be absolutely flying way off the mark with putting stuff together that really isn't there. But I am looking forward to what's been and gone. Is done with, but I agree. I am looking forward to seeing. I was impressed with Odin Bailey at Bristol Rovers. I was very impressed with Steve Seddon at Bristol Rovers. So hopefully, those guys are some more that that will come through and be part of a squad that we didn't have last season. So those three in particular, we didn't see any of those that last season. So they're almost like three new signings in themselves. Could you see the toxic atmosphere happening again, like Zola, Clark, and Cottrell? Again, I think the Zola one was very much we were getting so close to being really stuffed in terms of relegation. I think the fans had just had enough. It was clear that they couldn't warm to Zola. Zola couldn't warm to them. He wasn't a dislikable character. He just wasn't doing a great job with the players he had, and he was naive enough to think that he would be okay with it. Clark and Cottrell, completely different stories for me. Two dislikable guys who were very, very egotistical, and they had it their way and they weren't going to change for nobody, no matter what the situation was. And I think that the toxic atmosphere under Cottrell was very much based around him as a person. blaming the fans and saying that the players couldn't play at home, etc., etc. I think if the fans give up, it'll be because of the style, and obviously the points won't be being picked up. But I don't think it'll be toxic on the level of Cottrell. It'll just be that they've given up and they're panicking like they were under Zola. Forecast for Brentford, we'll do that in a second, Mark. One of my requests of the year is you doing a TTT DDS live feed, Tilton Talk Transfer Deadline Day show. Someone's going to have to tell. I think it's Friday night. If it's Friday night, I can't do it. I know that's desperately disappointing for everybody on here. But yeah, let me know when the deadline is. I might do a very, very late one after the deadline's finished. I can see there being a protest. I can't see there being a protest. Thank you. Right? I can't see there being a protest first home game now. So I need to pat the ground out. Yeah, it's a talk of protests. Obviously, was a couple of days after Monk got sacked, and everybody was very raw. I put myself in that category. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I didn't agree with it. But obviously, that's happened. That's gone now. So we need to move on, and we need to get behind the players we've got now, because they'll need our support as they did last season. What size crowd against Bristol? I think that's dependent on the Brentford game. If we win 3-0 at Brentford, you might see 23,000 there. If we lose 3-0, it might not be 20,000. The owners want this change of style of play. Have any of them played ever? Unfortunately, Dave, that doesn't matter, because they're the ones with the money. They're the ones, and the reality is, they're the owners at the moment, they get what they want, and if they don't, then the manager goes, or the players will get sold, or this, that, and the other. In the mind of the owners, it's becoming pretty clear that that they tried it with Zola, and they tried it with Cottrell, and now they're trying it with Pep. This is the way they want to see Birmingham City. They want to be able to sell a club that play attractive football, and they want to get us promoted. That's the reality. And if we're 22nd in January, 6 points off the drop zone, Pep might get the sack, and a manager who knows this league might come in, and they'll just say to him, just keep us up, and then in the summer it might all change again. But that is what the owners look like they're doing. That's the system. That's the philosophy at the moment, I think. I won't be going to watch Cov. No, I don't think I'll be going to watch Coventry either, on account that I am not a Coventry City fan. Bit disappointed is £25 for the first game after everything we've been through, closed season. That's Nick. I'm not sure. Obviously Bristol City are a side that all see themselves as being contenders for promotion this season. It's not a local derby as such, but it's not far away. It's our first home game of the season, and as we've spoke about, the owners have put a bit of money in. So I think I don't know. I think £25. We all know we'll get games this season where it's buy your ticket for this game and get this one for free, or kids for £1 and adults for £10 at certain games. So they have to make it up on other games as well. Is it the board or Pep making the decisions on signings? I think it might be a bit of both. I think it might. Obviously, they've got. I think is it Speakman, the new director of football. I think he might be having a say as well. But we're not the only club who do this. Who have this approach. Lots of clubs will have directors of football. Will have owners who will want their two pennies worth and say, "Oh, I like the look of this player. What do you think?" And as I say, if they all turn out to be absolute world beaters and we go up this season, then nobody will be questioning who picked them and who bought them. Camp has to start, says Graham Haynes. For me, I think I would agree. However, Chris Woodley says, I can't have another season of Camp, much rather Stockdale have another go. That might be the biggest split in Blues fans, I think, the Camp or Stockdale situation. That might well be the biggest split. And it's up to Pep to decide who dons the gloves at Brentford. He's to be fair to him, he's give Camp and Stockdale 50-50 this season, this pre-season. Sorry, Camp played at Bristol Rovers, Stockdale played against Brighton. I think they both played a half each in one of the other games as well. They both played a fair amount in Portugal. So, over the course of the pre-season, what has Pep seen from both keepers? I would, for me, like I said, Camp had the jersey last season. I think he gets it first game of the season. Stockdale will get his chance. We've got Portsmouth away in the Cup. He could easily play in that one. If he comes in and plays a couple of games and has blinders, then he deserves to keep the jersey. But for me, Camp still, at the moment. Seddon having a great pre-season, I agree with that. I think he has been very impressive in that left wing back role. That's a position that, I know the guys from Birmingham Fan TV are a little bit concerned about, but seeing Seddon, I think he's someone. He had 2 loan spells last season in League 2 and League 1, and he impressed in both. And I think he's someone that can come into the team, arm around his shoulder, a bit of confidence, say go out there and prove yourself. And I think he could have a great season, yeah. Ferguson always said you need 4 quality strikers to compete. Well, we're 3 short. If we're calling Duke a quality striker, we're 3 short. I can't see us getting 3 in. Wonder where these players will leave us in regards to FFP. I'm hoping, Graham, that the board know that. I've no idea. I've given up even trying to work out figures and calculate what's going on. So yeah, I certainly hope that they've got it right this time round. Roberts still worries me. Want him to come good though. I think Roberts will be fine this season. I think if he gets a regular spot in the starting lineup, stays injury free, has the confidence of the coach alongside Harley Dean at the back, I think he'll be absolutely fine this season. I think we'll see a different Mark Roberts to the one we've seen. As much as like Marmite, the style of play we tried on Saturday, Camp is a much better passer of the ball, says Dave Nelson. I'm going to read the comments. If there's comments coming in on these 2, then I'll read them out, but I am no longer giving my opinion on those 2. Staying up, our main objective, or would you say mid-table or run for the playoffs? Would you be disappointed if we didn't compete for the playoffs, says James. I think the board might be disappointed if we don't compete for the playoffs, because that is their ambition, that is their aim. I would say if you offered me 13th with the squad we've currently got now, I would take it. Get me to May the 31st, 2020 with 13th in the bag, and I will take it all day long. However, if we're 7th, 8th come Christmas, then you never know. You just never know. Momentum's crazy. It can take you a long, long way. A couple of additions in January, if we try and risk it, then possibly playoffs. But yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think it's very boring. It's very cynical to say, but take each game at a time, concentrate on Brentford, and then go again. Vasella on loan, yep. Possibly to Luton, but again, it's all rumours and loans. Paul Lilly, go on then, we'll go Brentford. Paul Lilly starts us off with 2-1 to Blues on Saturday. Crowley and the Duke with the goals. If anybody else wants to put their own 2 pennies worth in, I'll read them out. Keacher on the transfer list, apparently. According to Al Majir, I think that one was. I think he's been injury prone a little bit. Trouble is, we've tried to. I think we've tried to offload him the last couple of transfer windows, and we don't seem to be getting much luck. He might stay based on the fact that nobody else wants him. Where are we? Need a new forward, striker, 2 players. Nicholas Wellsbury. I think 2 up front. 2 attacking players certainly. Last season started poor. Remember, we did Pete Taylor. That's a very interesting point. We didn't start poorly, but we weren't picking up wins. And I think the fans stuck with them because of the performances. They saw the performances weren't terrible. Somebody else who didn't start very well last season, of course, was Che Adams, who then went on to score 20-yard goals and be sold for 15 million. So if Vassell was to stay, or we did get somebody else in, or if Magoma or Odin Bailey or somebody else started linking up with Duke, if they haven't scored 6 in the first 6 games, I wouldn't be too concerned, because it can click overnight as a striker, like it did with Adams. Just hope we are within FFP rules. Of course we do, Thomas. That is very important, because if we aren't, I'm sure the EFL will think nothing better than to dock us even more points this season for going even further ahead. Have you noticed this tuft of my hair is an absolute disgrace? I can't get rid of it. I'm ever so sorry. Hopefully Butland goes, some more money for us. Well, there's another one, James. Butland. I'm stunned that Butland is still a Championship player. Absolutely stunned. If he does get, it's unlikely that he's going to get sold in the next 4 days. I'm trying to think of Premier League clubs who need a keeper, who are looking for a keeper. If he does go, then that might help us out a little bit more. Buying the lottery company is a matter of help, says Jez. Is a massive help, says Jez. That's something that the board have done, hopefully to raise more income. We just don't know how this season will pan out. Hopefully it doesn't turn out when Zola was here, says Mike Hansen. Isn't that the joy of it though, Mike? Who knows what's going to happen? I've no idea. We could be world beaters. We could be absolute dregs. Who knows? But we're there for the ride. That's the main thing. James wants Cov away, I assume in the cup, so we could sit in the away end. How unprofessional of me. Do apologise. You may have heard my doorbell go. How ridiculous. The perils of doing a show at home. We've covered an awful lot. I think we'll quickly go onto the Brentford game. Obviously, they're a side that finished well last season. They lost their manager. Obviously going across the expressway, but they're a side that have been very good at this level for a number of years now. They know exactly what they're doing. Neil Maupay is somebody who Blues fans have got a lovely affiliation with. Not the healthiest of relationships. I think it's fair to say. Hopefully he doesn't have as big an impact as he did last season in getting Kieftenbeld sent off. So it's a tricky one. First game of the season is always difficult to predict. As we've said, especially with Blues, we have no idea whether it will come good or bad. First game of the season, 6th game of the season, or any game of the season. It is impossible to predict. I think if we come away from Brentford with a point, I think that's a very good building block. Personally, they're a side that are strong at home, always strong at home. We got a point there last season. I think if we can replicate that form and that result, then I think we've got to take that as a positive. If we can get a couple of goals, and hopefully keep it tight at the back, then all the better. With the system, the team selection will be very interesting. Will he go Camp or Stockdale? Will he play the back three that he did against Brighton? Who will be the left wing back, and who will be the top two? I think I would be amazed if it wasn't Gary Gardner, Sunjic and Crowley in midfield. So the question is, who partners Duke up front? Will it be a new signing who partners Duke up front? Obviously we're at Monday now, so we've got 5 days to try and get some deals done, to try and get those attacking players done. On the subject of Keith, does anyone know how he's recovering? I think there was pictures of him back at training, at the training ground, which is a big plus. An injury like that, though, you really don't rush it back, and you take all the precaution you can with it. I would be surprised to see him back in 2019. I think we're probably looking more January, February 2020 for him to be back. But the progression is the important thing, getting the strength back in that knee, and getting his confidence back before he gets out on the field. Mick Hughes says, "Hello, mate. What system will we play?" Well, we will play the system that has been trialled and tested all pre-season. Three central defenders, 2 wing backs, 3 in midfield, and 2 up front, or 1 off the main striker. That is the way that Pep has played us all pre-season, and that appears to be the way that the owners and Pep and the coaching staff want us to go now. Ray, was it a strange decision to offer Duke a 3-year deal, but Morrison only 1? I have my thoughts on Morrison. Michael Morrison, when the going was good, he was excellent. He was confident and he was a good leader. When the going got tough, Michael Morrison was gone. You didn't see Michael Morrison under Zola. We hardly saw Michael Morrison under Steve Cottrell. Certainly not the Michael Morrison we saw under Monk. And I think a 3-year deal for Duke, he is the focal point. He is that rock at the top. And he had his best season for Blues last season. He looked sharper, he looked leaner, he looked fitter than he had done in years. And he looked more confident than he had, and as a striker in particular, if you've got that confidence going, if you've got that goal scoring knack going, which he did at times last season, then you're worth your weight in gold. And I think obviously they knew realistically Che was going to go. Somebody was going to come in for Che. Vassell, it looks like they might be willing to let him go out on loan. So that doesn't leave us much. So Duke was the key. He is the key to that striker. Whereas Morrison, we've got Dean. We knew we had Roberts in the wings. Clark Salter's come in, as I said. Pedersen, Harding. If it had to be one of those two, it could be. So I think the Morrison situation wasn't as key as Duke. Wasn't as important. We offered him a contract. He's turned it down, and he's left to join Reading. Now, if he thinks that's better for him financially, then fair play. Footballers, I suppose, have got to consider their finances at some point. But there's no way Reading are a better fit than Blues. But he's made his decision, and and he's gone. So we focus on the guys who have stayed, who have left. He never stops running, which is all us Blue Noses asked for. Yeah, that's obviously, that's Duke's main attribute. He could look like he's absolutely out, dead on his feet after 8 to 10 minutes, but he'll still be chasing lost causes down and causing the defenders grief. In the 85th minute if he's on the pitch. And he got an absolute kick in and pulled apart left, right, and centre on Saturday against Brighton, against 3 enormous centre halves. A really tough job for him, but it worked. And he worked his socks off, and he got a couple of shots away, which he was a little bit unlucky with. And like I said, I think if it's a choice of Duke or Morrison, you have to give one of them a 3-year deal. We've picked the right one for me. Nick says, I'm confident there's a plan in place. I hope there's a plan in place. There'll definitely be a plan. That's the one thing that there will be. The plan will be there. It's whether it works and pans out or not. Before you finish, I'd just like to say that someone should bring back the Ice Bucket Challenge just for you, says Aaron. That's not very nice. That's really not very nice at all. I don't know how I end up getting myself into these scrapes. Why don't we loan more Premier League players, says James. I think the big thing is that any Premier League players who will be available, we probably don't know they'll be available until 3 days before the window ends, because it seems every Premier League club is doing exactly the same. They're trying to leave it late to do deals. If Wilf Zaha leaves to join Everton, Palace will need to make a signing. Everton will be able to get rid of people. So I think everybody's doing the same thing, really, leaving it as late as possible. There might be something that comes up with 12 hours of the window to go that we had no idea about until that moment. So it'll be interesting. I think we're obviously looking at a different ball game altogether. It's clear we're looking at the foreign leagues, Spanish leagues, at players we can bring through, and with a sell-on value, I think that's the obvious thing. We don't want another case of bringing Ndoye in on 40-odd grand a week with no sell-on value, and players coming in on big wages who we can't get any money for when we're ready to get rid of them. Have we got defenders good enough to play this system? We'll soon find out, Mick. We will. I think Harley Dean is confident with the ball at his feet. I think Mark Roberts, that we saw at Barnsley, was very confident with the ball at his feet. If we see that one again, I'll be very happy, because I think he'll suit right into that defence. And I think Clark Salter, it was a shaky start for him on Saturday, but I think if he gets a regular run, hopefully we'll see far more of him. And if Pedersen plays in that back three as well, the one thing he has shown that he's capable of is being comfortable with the ball at his feet. So yeah, I hope so. And it'll be all about trying to find Sunjic if he's dropping deeper, or Crowley, so he can unpick a few passes. But that's the way they're trying to go. Obviously, they want as many options as possible rather than just win the ball back and get it down the channels to Che and Duke. Also, with buying these 23-year-olds and under, we now have saleable assets, and that great. That's the point, Ray. I think they're fed up of buying people, and then 2 years down the line they can't get any money for them. And they're probably questioned former directors of football, former managers as to how that's been allowed to happen. But definitely the way they're trying to buy at the moment, it's a clear indication that they want that sell on value. The holding Croatian is key to our back three. Sarfraz Hussain, possibly comment of the night He is absolutely massively important. He's got a very, very big hype about him. Croatian under-21 captain. That suggests that he can play football. A Croatian midfielder. You look at the Croatian midfielders of the World Cup in 2018. Every single one of them is almost a carbon copy. Very comfortable on the ball, moves the ball quickly. Can hold themselves in a scrap. And I think he is absolutely crucial. If he's anything like, I'm not saying I'm expecting him to be the next Modric, but if he's anything in the ilk of their central midfielders that they had in the World Cup, then that key might be very, very good and very, very important. Blues on Twitter have just said, haven't decided on a season ticket yet. We are hosting 2 season ticket open days on Friday the 2nd and Monday the 5th of August. You will be escorted to your preferred seat location and be able to ask any questions you have. So if you are and ahhing about a season ticket, Friday the 2nd and Monday the 5th, if you are free, get down, have a look around, pick your seat and get behind the boys. Dean was the right man for the captaincy by a mile, wasn't he, Chris? Benji says, as though I'm going to completely agree with him, which I am. I am going to agree. Harley Dean for me, captain. If it had gone to Duke, I wouldn't have had any complaints. But I think Harley Dean is a good replacement. I'm a little bit old school. I think I like a centre back as captain. Harley Dean, I think, has got a lot of respect in that dressing room, as Duke has a hell of a lot of respect. I think either of them could have got it, but I am happy, more than happy, that Dean has got it. Any truth about Spanish billionaire after Blues, and that's why we're getting all the Spanish lads? Absolutely no idea. Hope so. If he's a billionaire, I wouldn't say no to him. But no, I think the Spanish lads is the connection with Cornea and Paco Herrera coming in, and just trying to utilise a different market basically than the English market, which is often, as we have found, overpriced. Are they calling him the next Modric? I'm refusing to call him the next Modric because there is no next Modric, because Modric is a one-off unique genius of a footballer. So I will not call him the next Modric. I will call him Ivan Sunjic, who will go on to lift the FA Cup for Blues. I've gone completely mad. Seddon will be our star player this season, says Paul. I think, do you know what? I'm not going to argue with that. Like I said, I saw him at Bristol Rovers, and it was very clear. Pep could not have been telling him to get up as high as possible down that left-hand side. Every time the midfield won the ball back, every time the ball was at the feet of Mark Roberts, Seddon was gone down that left-hand side. He looks like he's got the engine to get up and down that wing for 90 minutes. And yeah, I think hopefully we'll see a lot of him this season, because I have been impressed with him. Hopefully Sunjic will solve our goal leaking problem as he plays just in front of the back three. Yeah, I think he'll be the one. When the back three have got it, he'll be dropping deep to pick the ball up off them, which would probably lead to opposition midfielder following him, which might leave gaps for Crowley and Gary Gardner in midfield to find a bit more space. So the options are there, but I think it was Sarfraz who said he'll be key. I think very much he will be. He will be absolutely key to whether this back three succeeds or not. Have we signed the Romanian Puskas up front? We have not had confirmation that we have signed him. There's been news reports I think Inter Milan actually said that he was leaving their training camp to try and get a move with a new club. Now, whether that's us or whether that's another club, who knows? But yeah, I think he's got four international goals in 8 games. Had a decent season at Palermo last season, I think. But yeah, we need reinforcements up front. If it's Puskas, brilliant. If it's somebody else, equally brilliant, because we are light up front. Do you know if we're still looking at Christian Bielik, Chris? I don't, Emma. I think he was at Charlton last season, wasn't he? I think he was part of the Charlton side that came up. He's someone obviously that Blues fans know. He was on loan with us for a spell. I don't know whether Christian Bielik looked better than what he was because of the side he was in. I don't think he was in a very good side. I'm not saying he's not a bad player, and certainly if he's available and if we can get him for cheap, I wouldn't scoff at the signing. But yeah, I'd be putting defenders, midfielders on the back burner for now and focusing on forwards. Both Moscow teams have had 10 million bids rejected, so can't see us getting him. No chance we'd spend 10 million on a player. That's from Joe, and I think it's about Puskas. We won't be signing 10 million on a player. We will not be spending that much. Why don't we use the loan system more? Sure, there's a decent Premier League attacking youngster we can borrow. Yeah, and as I said on the first show before somebody came to my door, we might find on Thursday afternoon that Crystal Palace have sold Wilfried Zaha, and they've signed 3 more forwards, and all of a sudden one of their attacking players is available on loan. Everton might sign Zaha, so we might find that one of the Everton young players is available on loan. All of this, the fact that Premier League teams are leaving their deals till late doesn't help Championship clubs, because we don't know where we stand until very, very late, and it's difficult to get deals done. But like I said, we'll come 3 p.m. on Saturday when the game kicks off at Brentford, we'll know exactly where we stand and we'll know exactly who we've got. Seddon will be great for us and will be a fan's favourite. And do you think Jude Bellingham will start on Saturday? No, I don't think he'll start on Saturday. I think we'll see a lot more of him this season. And that can only be a good thing, I think. Because there's been a lot made about Jude. And I think if he gets game time and comes in and performs well, gets confidence, I think that will be good. It's good that we've tied him down to a contract. I'm hoping to see a bit more of Jude. As for starting Saturday, I can't see that. Never mind Blues improving this season. Do you think fast play will improve this season? Benji doesn't need improving. It's a superb, well-oiled machine. How much game time do you reckon the youngsters will get? Again, if by youngsters you mean Seddon, Bailey, Bellingham, I think Seddon's probably the best chance of playing regular football. Bailey will get his chance. Bellingham will get his chance at some point. I'm sure of that. Joe Redmond, people like that. They've had their chances in pre-season, and I don't think they've done anything dramatically wrong. More likely to get Garcia from Las Palmas, says the Royal Blue Room. I think that's the one at the moment that's looking very likely according to Spanish reports. Just to say, this is part 2. Chris Brown will stitch both parts together for the YouTubers. You can blame the person who came to my door for that one. Same with Sunjic, linked with him last month, then it went quiet, and out of nowhere we signed him. And that's the thing with rumours. Somebody will hear something. That's why it's important not to not to take everything you hear 100% for granted, but also, I'm sure there's people out there who are throwing names about because they're being told in confidence that we are looking at these sorts of players. And just because it doesn't happen doesn't mean that it was never going to happen. Things happen. Things occur. Things come up to stop deals happening. But yeah. And do we wrap the youngsters up in cotton wool or unleash them this season? I think you have to use them carefully, use them wisely. But if they come in and they're playing well and we're picking up points and doing well, then roll with it, run with it as much as possible. Norwich last season, I'll use Norwich again, gave young Max Aarons, I think it was, and Ben Godfrey and people like that a chance from their youth. And they went with it and they started well, and they kept running with it and they got themselves promoted. So it's crazy how momentum works in football, and a 48-game season might sound long, but actually if you're riding that crest of a wave and that momentum, it can take you halfway through the season, and before you know it, you're in the playoffs and and you're looking up rather than looking down. Any news on the goalkeeper situation? Well, I said I wasn't going to carry on with this. Stephen Gill starts with camp. That's all I'll say. Potentially, if they play well, we will lose them in January. Well, maybe we do. But, the likes of Seddon and Bellingham and Bailey and people like that have just signed professional contracts. So if someone does come in for them in January, they're going to have to pay money for them. Very trepidatious for Saturday. Can see us getting nailed until it all comes together when we've officially got everyone through the door. Hope not, though. Brentford may pass our newly assembled team to death. Why the negativity? Where's that come from? We've had a lovely hour or so talking about Blues in the pre-season. But I can't end on that, Carl. I can't end on that. Somebody's going to have to put a really positive comment. So I cannot end on Brentford may pass our newly assembled team to death. That's way too negative. I can't do it. I said I'd take a point on Saturday. I will say 1-1. And I think Gary Gardner will score. So that we'll get a point from the first game of the season. And then we go on to Bristol City at home, it is, isn't it? And then Forest away, and then Barnsley at home, and Swansea away, all before August finishes. TTS Super 6 League is open. Yes, we'll mention a couple of these. Super 6, Ray, if you put the code on the Facebook page, free to join, predict 6 results. We've got our own league. If you fancy yourselves as a brain box, far more better at predicting football results than me and Nick and Chris, which is almost certainly the case, then join the Tilton Talk 6 and we've also got I know it's irrelevant because who cares about the Premier League, it's a non-entity, but we've also got a Premier League fantasy football set up now, which I put on the Facebook page earlier. 2 leagues. There's a head-to-head league and a classic league. You can join both. Classic league is just accumulation of your points throughout the season, and the head-to-head league is a little bit different. So the computer, the Premier League website puts 2 teams together, and you play that team, and you get 3 points with a win, 1 point with a draw, etc. Just like a normal league. So it's a league campaign rather than accumulation. So yeah, feel free to join that as well. Can we end on thank you for everything hotter chocolate, says Benji. I would do, but he's joined them, so he's dead to me, so no. Paul Lilly says keep right on. Emma Humphrey says you should do this more often, Chris. Facebook Live, Just Blues, great. If you have a look every Monday, Emma, we do tend to do that. But thank you, I appreciate that. Fire up the bus, Stuart Rose. Is that the promotion bus I hear chugging away behind me? Have the squad numbers been announced? I don't think so yet, James. Clark Salter wore 14, I think, on Saturday. Yeah, but I'm sure that'll be sorted out relatively soon. The black kit's pretty good, by the way. Just to end on. I think it's just the new boys we're waiting on. I've noticed Crowley has been wearing number 7. He did wear, yeah. Are we going to do a preview of the Blues women's? Goodness me, Stephen, I've been on for an hour and 20 minutes now. I could go on for another hour and 20 minutes on that. I'm sure we'll speak about it throughout the season in due course. But yeah, that's been a little bit hectic as well over the summer. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. Anybody who's going to Brentford, have a fantastic time. Bring back some points. Cheer on the boys loudly. I will be at Edgbaston on Saturday, watching Australia get battered in the Ashes by the mighty England. But yeah, so anybody who's going to Brentford, have a fantastic time. Enjoy the new style of football. And as I said, cheer on the boys, and hopefully we bring back some points. And I will be back with the usual crowd, Nick Spall and Chris Brown, next Monday night, 7:30 till 9, for a proper professional Tilton Talk show. Thanks ever so much, guys. See you in a bit.